Hey YouTube, it's Chris. Welcome back to my life. We are at February 1973, and my parents had it. Job prospects bleak, not getting any help, and of course, the bastard landlord. Now, again, I mentioned in the last video that the folks, some of the things that they did to try to make ends meet was working across the street at Baker's. Um, Eric was a great man. He was a German Jew. His family got out just in time, not before the Nazis took their property. Went to New York, eventually Chicago, and then he bought the Pinewood Lodge, which was across Crescent from the Grand Beach stuff. And this is one of the cans. This is an antique. I can't say that this is from when my parents actually worked there, but Lebkuchen used to be in here. Also made stolen, actual German Christmas bread, not misspellings of frequent lies. Great cookies too. But anyway, so because the bastard and his spineless wife were no help, my parents turned to the east and looked at mom's parents. So I have two sets of grandparents. There's the bastard and his spineless wife, and my loving grandparents. So my loving grandparents said, well, yes, of course we'll help you find work. We'll find a place for you to live. We'll watch our oldest grandchild. That's what families do. So before I was 2 years old, we moved to mid-Michigan. And this was on Portage Lake, lived down the street in the Blue Oak Summer Cottage. I'll get back to that. Getting away from the timeline just for a second, this is a funny story, I think anyway, about Ron and Julie. So I mentioned earlier that they met in college in 1966. And Julie was so excited when she found out as they were talking that Ron had grown up on Lake Michigan. Well, I grew up on a lake too. And I also mentioned that they went to each other's houses. And the first time Ron went to Julie, she was so excited to show him the lake. Takes him around the house. Here it is. What the fuck is this? I thought you said you grew up on a lake. This is a lake. I can see the other side. So, when you grow up on a Great Lake, you're kind of a little arrogant and look down on the people who grew up on inland lakes. Because, yeah, I mean, you can't see the other side of Lake Michigan unless you go up the shore to Warren Dunes, hike up to the top of the dunes. On a clear day, you can see 30 miles across the lake, just the tops of the skyscrapers in Chicago, but you really can't see the other side of the lake. And it's a beautiful sandy bottom, as opposed to the muck and mud and gross crap in that cesspool, Portage Lake. Nothing against Portage Lake. It's just every inland lake's a cesspool compared to Lake Michigan. Anyway, so yeah, I fortunately don't have a lot of memories from our brief stay in the Blue Oak Summer Cottage in February in Michigan. I grew up on stories of the oven being on with the door open and space heaters and a lot of blankets to keep warm. I assume I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. But somehow we made it work. Grandma was a nurse at a care home, and she got my parents' jobs there. Mom was what's essentially a CNA. They didn't have CNAs back then, but that's kind of the work she did at night while Dad watched me. And then Dad worked maintenance during the day while Mom watched me. And I do have a memory of this, of it was probably in the spring because I remember the weather being nice. Could have been the summer. At the Cedar Knoll Rest Home, sitting on my father's lap while he was on blue and white front loader. Yeah, Gen X kid. We didn't need seat belts. We didn't need car seats. We were tough. And he's dead, so CPS can't go after him. But when summer came, the Bleos obviously wanted their summer cottage back, so that's when Mom found a place for us in Jackson, which is the house I grew up in. And that brings us to the second prop of this video. So most people call this a pacifier. I call it a how. That's how I grew up growing, understanding what it is. And so this was shortly after we moved in. So the summer of, then I'm 2 years old. And my mother's on the phone, which, again, this is the 70s. There are no cell phones, a landline attached to the wall in the dining room. And I did not have my pacifier. And I was bugging my mother, and she said, "Get your pacifier." How? Get your pacifier. How? Get your pacifier. How? Get your pacifier. How? It's not with this one. I had many, but because even back then I like to suck on things. Go figure. I'd thrown it out the window, and so it was a legitimate question. How am I supposed to go outside and get my pacifier? My how? And that's where we'll end this video. Thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and as always, take care of yourselves, YouTube.